Uh, Title of today's talk is Garbage In, Gold Out. And as Gus from OptiLogic said right before the talk, sounds like bullshit. So let's let's try to not make that the case, right? So my name's Nick Ham. I'm the VP of Supply Chain Design at Spinnaker SCA. I've been with them for about 8 years. I was with LlamaSoft for 9 years, from their very early days till they grew to about 650 people or so. Then had an interregnum of an independent consultant for about 5 years. So I've been doing supply chain design my entire career. And this, as you've heard throughout the conference, 80% of this project, these projects are data, right? So this has sort of been my own personal white whale. Like, all right, how do you fix this, right? And over the course of doing all of these projects through the course of all these years, here to share some tips and tricks, right? So there's sort of three audiences here today. There's the people that are looking for the specific how, like the data modelers, the people that are going to be doing the actual changes themselves, right? There's the executives or the, sort of the leadership, sponsorship class that's going to be consuming the results and wants to have faith in what they've been given, right? And then there's our friendly competitors who want to see what we have to do. So thanks to everyone for coming there as well. Yeah. Um, so this is a quick overview. Spinnaker is actually a COE within a larger company. Its company is called Publicis Sapient. It's a $10 billion uh, company that has a high footprint across the globe. And so if the supply chain journey takes you to a place where, all right, I need a lot of people in far-flung geographies, we can help you sort of in North America, but anywhere across the world as well, just letting you know. And we offer services from, you know, uh, supply chain network design all the way through, tactical implementations of any of those source systems. All right, so we're going to stay around these four themes, and I have a lot to say sort of in each of these different buckets, but we're going to go through each of them, right? So first thing, on the data checklist side, we'll talk about what a checklist buys you, and there's a little bit of counterintuitive stuff around that. Then we're going to talk about the normalization process. What does it mean to normalize it, and what is the benefits of doing that? Then we're going to talk about the benefits and why you need to automate and document it. It doesn't really matter what technology you're using to do it, but we'll talk about why it has to be automated and documented. And then we'll talk about the validate, run, and accept sort of cycle. And as you see, this is a circle. The way to actually do this successfully is to go around this circle at least 5 times through the course of the project. And that's how you get ownership through the process when you're going through this with stakeholders, but it's also actually how you get data, which is where I'll start here. So when you make a data checklist, right, you're presenting and like at the end, we have a QR code. You can scan it and we'll give you the data checklist to go through it, right? So, but one of the benefits of the checklist is sitting down, and it's just a tool to facilitate a conversation with the people that you're talking to. Like, here are the things we need, and then they can go down and go, we have that, that's easy. Don't have that, etc. And you're sort of documenting and communicating what they have, what they don't have. And it's a way to make it not feel like an interrogation, but it's more like collaborative. Of here's what we need and why we need it. And then check it along. And then it's like, oh, we didn't have that, so we're going to have to do something with that, right? And then the next question is, okay, for the stuff we don't have, right? Because if you have it, we'll take it, right? For the stuff you don't have, how are we going to figure out how important is that data? And like, do we need it? Like, what's the triage process that we're going to do to fill in that missing data, right? And there's some really helpful things when you're, using a tool like OptiLogic, right? You're not limited to, just being like, okay, we don't have the data, we can't do anything. The first thing in the triage process is you can build a quick model, and you can model a low end and a high end. Like, I'm pretty sure the missing data is somewhere in between this range, right? And if you can run that model and see that the answers that we're, answering for this specific scope aren't changing based on this input, then it doesn't really matter if you have the data. It's like, all right, well, if it's the low end or the high end, it's like we might be paying more if the fuel surcharge goes up. But if the location is still Kansas City, then we're good. And it's actually part of the sensitivities you're going to do anyway was like see how sensitive this was. So it's like, all right, we have this capability with the modeling technology to help us triage. Do we really need to spend time on this data? And specifically, as the team's been showing like the great cost to serve reports and things that are now built into OptiLogic, you use that to help go, okay, these are the particular lanes that are moving. Let's go spend our time digging in on that particular piece of data, right? And getting that right. So the next piece is normalizing the data. And this is about getting stuff that's apples to apples. The term that we use internally is design data versus transactional data. So if you think about design data is data you don't have in your systems because you didn't operate with that data in your supply chain historically. You're considering a new facility, you're considering new lanes, you're considering new carriers, you're considering new modes. It's like it's not going to be in your transactional history, right? So you got to go get it from a third-party source somewhere, whether it's internally at your company or you're pulling it from spot rates. And then what you have to do is you have to normalize that to your existing transactional data because you have negotiated rates on high volume lanes, right? And if you just pull a spot rate for another thing, and while that model, again, when you model it, you'll see the volume that the model wants to put on that. You're going to have to start using that in the normalization process. So this is a thing. Come and talk to me afterwards. I'm happy. Like, this is a very involved process. It came through in 15 minutes, but like, this is where the sort of rubber meets the road. And like getting a model where, again, when we get to the automated document step, you're not going to get that right on the first shot, right? But you put together a model and a framework that gives you enough degrees of freedom where you can start changing the things. And then once you're once you're looking at the results, having communication with stakeholders, you can then go back and tweak the parameters to your calibration, and round and round and round you go until it converges and you're getting answers that make sense, or that everyone else has sort of an ownership in the process that you went through, instead of just like, here's the stuff. I put in my routing guide, I put in the spot rate quote I got from the ocean team, and now I know what the right thing to do is. So we get to the automate document step. Again, for all the people that are looking for the how-tos, there's a lot of great tools from, as we've seen Datastar sort of emerging out here. So whether it's you're going through Datastar, you're using Alteryx, you're writing Python code, it's like we can help you sort of with each of those things. There's, no matter what tool you're using, there's ways to organize it and structure it so that you're like, all right, I know where to go look. And when I hear something, I know where to go put it so I can go find it. And then I cross-reference it so I can communicate it to a wider group. The reason that documentation becomes so important is when you go to communicate this outside of the project team to the wider people in the organization, the people that didn't come on this, 5 cycles around with you, right? They need to be able to read, the journey that happened so that they can also, come along, because otherwise it's a black box to them, right? And if they don't have the meeting notes of like, here's what this person said on this date, and we decided, and then we changed our mind 2 weeks later when we did this, it's like, there's nothing there. So it's less even about documentation internally. Like there's so much that it goes outside of your own working memory. It's very helpful for the project team, but really the audience for it is once you go to communicate it to the wider business, and you want to then hand it off to, like it has downstream implications for, you're going to need to put in Corba or whatever WMS now. It's like they would love to read the the reason why, right? And also know who was involved in that decision, what assumptions were made, and et cetera, right? And then sort of the last step is run and validate, right? This again has its own little mini loop, so we have its own little mini loop here, right? Talking about the things that we do in this process. Again, being at OptiLogic here, talking about modeling, I want to invoke something I talk about with my clients all the time. It's called Cunningham's Law, right? You can look it up on Wikipedia. And Cunningham's Law is that if you want the right answer to something, it's like you don't ask the question. This is on the internet. You just post the wrong answer, and then out will come the right. Like people will then start going, no. Here's what it is, right? And when I talked about going around that circle 4 or 5 times, you should be using Cunningham's Law for the first 3, knowing and like taking your ego aside of like, oh, I'm really smart, I have a great model, look how great my model is. Use it as an opportunity to fill in those gaps with reasonable placeholders, show it to people, and you will be blown away that when you went through the data checklist process, like, oh, we don't have this, we don't have that, or this is hard. But then once you go through that first review cycle of like, oh, here, we're gonna move this here, and they're like, oh no, we're not, because blah, blah, blah. Like it's like, okay, well, it's plainly the wrong answer, but you'll get such an engagement and such a, you know, energy and engagement once people see, all right, oh, the data you were asking me for, you were actually going to use, instead of like a lot of the requests, people will, ask me for data and then they never do anything with it. Why should I, be engaged to give you a lot of time and effort to go pull that? And they get to see and they get excited once you get them sort of through that first cycle. And if the first time you're showing them something is the final readout, you like really miss that opportunity to get the engagement that you're looking for. So getting, again, a tool like OptiLogic enables you to build models so much faster. It's like you get through that first cycle as quickly as you can, and then you're just going around and around that circle as many times as you can with the amount of time that you have, the scope that you have to clean up that missing data, right? Specifically, so for garbage in, garbage out, it's like this clean step and conform step and enrich step and blend step. It's like these are categories. Again, it doesn't really matter what tool you're doing or you're doing to do the steps. Those are helpful. It's like a helpful taxonomy. And I actually got it from like a data warehousing implementation book, like from 20 years ago, of like, how do you implement a data warehouse? It's like, all right, we're going to make these types of changes to your data. And it's like, group them into these families. And so what's a clean step? It's removing white spaces from or bad characters, etc. It's like cleaning the data. You're not changing the content of it, right? What's the conform family in taxonomy? That's taking, oh, I have OH in this table and I have Ohio in this table. It's like I'm picking a convention and now we're on the same. It's like, oh, my plant code has a leading P in this table and it has just 4 codes. All right, we're picking our convention, we're conforming it, right? Enriching is things like, all right, well, now I'm adding latitude, longitude, I'm adding great demographic data, I'm adding other information from third-party sources to, help the data. It's like you do that after you conform it, so you're only joining once and you can correctly add it to the right place, right? And then blending, once you've done that enrichment, now you have 3 different data sources. You're going to take those 3 conformed data sources that have been enriched, you can glue them all together in one schema. This is often your OptiLogic output model, etc. Right? And then from there, you might aggregate up or down once you've sort of automated that process to pick the right level of scope that you're doing for the model at hand, right? But often up to this stage, this blended stage, that might be something that lives in Snowflake. It might be, wherever data warehouse you have or internally, you have sort of that rich set so that when you go to pull some data for the next question that has a different scope, you have the faith that you're good up to here and now you can aggregate, filter, grab whatever you need to answer the question at hand, and you're not repeating the whole same process the whole way through, right? So, and you may already have in an organization already gotten to the point where you have a source of truth. I've been in a bunch of different talks like, oh, I was blessed, I had this great source of truth for stuff where somebody had already done the work for you to get up to this place. It's like, that's great. Start there and do that. You go faster, right? And then once you've aggregated, then you got to map it into the schema. In this case, that's the specific stuff of like, all right, whatever data you've chosen, format, structure, etc., or you've inherited from somebody else's great work, getting it in Databricks or Snowflake or whatever. It's like you got to get it into now the Hopper format, right? So there's just the mapping stage. Again, the mechanics of all of these things, we can help anyone sort of through the structure of this. It's like a personal interest. So it's like, I'm very happy to go probably longer than you'd want to going into the details on it. And then, round and round you go. So, and I guess the key point for like sort of the data, like the garbage into gold is, again, bracketing, what's my low high, using that to triage, and then failing fast, and then it's not going to get better with more effort or more concentration, or like it only gets better by sharing it with a wider people, helping, and like in those conversations with people, you're trying to extract from them, what's my low, what's my high, let me see if I can compress this range, and let's see, like Let's see if we can narrow it down. And again, if you can't narrow it down, great. It's like you're still going to run the scenario with the low and high. And you're going to see what matters, right? And you're going to be able to prioritize what matters in what area. And then you can then spend the time to go create data if it needs to be created that then fills that void. Um, so I guess, yeah. So when somebody gives you garbage, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to have to go create gold on my first cycle, and then that's going to become a replacement for the garbage or missing hole that was there in the first place, right? So this is an example of like what it uses, whether it's Ultrix, Data Start. It really is not. It's like a process that really isn't too dependent on. There's no wonder weapon that you're going to point at this and now the game is over. It comes down to conversations, externally with people and handling it from there. So that's the main gist of the slide. Again, scan this for a checklist if you'd like that. The QR code. We're happy to again talk your ear off on this process. But I'll pause here and see if there's any sort of questions from the wider audience.